What's up, guys? So I got a good question from our buddy Marc, who's having a mental toughness problem. He's wanting to know, is there a way to develop more mental toughness? He says that when he's training, when people put a lot of pressure on him, he gives up. He says that he gets really frustrated and he just gives up whatever it is he's doing. And he says that afterwards it's frustrating because he kind of knew what he was supposed to do. But in the heat of the moment, when he gets a lot of pressure put onto him, he just folds and gives up. And again, he wants to know if there is a way to develop mental toughness, or is it something you're just born with? Thanks. So first off, Marc, thanks for the question, brother. I appreciate it. And let me start by saying that mental toughness is a skill. It's just like anything else that you can develop. And it's not something that you have to be born with. It is something that can be, developed over time. Now, it is something that a lot of people sometimes just have it, some people don't, but it is something you can be developed. I'm going to share two stories with you that'll kind of give you some of the experience that I have. One from my own personal experience when I was training as a white belt, and then also I'm going to share experience that I have as a coach with one of my students who had the same issue. So as a white belt, I've shared this in previous videos that I spent a number of months on my back playing for my guard all the time. And again, coming from a wrestling background, this was not my favorite place to be, but my coach was insistent that I be there because I needed to develop a guard game. It's jiu-jitsu, it's not wrestling, but it was frustrating. A lot of times what would happen in the sort of initial stages of my jiu-jitsu training was I would throw up a sweep or submission, and it obviously wasn't very good. My partner would begin to pass. And there would be this moment where I would, set up my frame and I'm pushing away from the person and I'm trying to hip escape away and I'm trying to move my body away from them and they're pressuring into me. And there's this moment where we're both like sort of locked horns and neither one of us has an advantage. And it kind of comes down to who breaks, who gives up. And a lot of times in the beginning, it was me. As soon as they start to put that pressure forward, I would just get really frustrated. I would feel this sort of almost like anger, just irritation come up into it comes up through my chest. And I would just push or do something stupid and let the person get down at the side control or mount. And then I would almost take a beat of and then I would try to fight from there, but it usually was too late and the person would already be ahead of me, as far as the positioning goes. And so, we were talking to my coach and I started to realize that, my coach brought it out to my attention that I was just giving up all the time. And I started to think about it. And the way that I think about it, have you ever seen those cartoons where especially the old school cartoons where the person would have a dilemma, right? Usually it was a moral situation, they had to do something that was either morally wrong or morally right. And they'd have one little devil sitting on one side and the angel sitting on the other telling them to do two different things. Well, that was what it was like for me when I was training. I would start to push away from the person, and when we got to that point where we're both pushing back and forth, and it's who gives up? I have one guy on my shoulder telling me to fight, and then the other guy on my shoulder telling me, man, just give up. Your arms are in pain, you're getting tired, just let go. Just quit, just telling you to give up. And a lot of times in the beginning, that voice, the one that was telling me to give up, was louder, and I would just let go. And it took a long time for me to deal with that. And essentially what I had to do was start telling this voice to shut up, right? So as soon as I started to kind of get that and I didn't do this, by the way, I didn't do this going into it thinking I was going to develop mental toughness. The idea of developing the mental toughness came sort of with hindsight. I realized what I did now. But at the time, I just felt like a little bitch. I was like, man, I'm giving up all the time. So I was just trying to get rid of my bitchness. So when I heard that voice, I would literally think to myself, shut the fuck up, I'm fighting, right? That's what I would say to myself. And I would continue to fight with everything that I had. And if the person passed, they would really force it down on me. And at least then I knew that I fought with every ounce of energy I had and I didn't give up. And eventually what began to happen was I started fighting more and more and more, and I started being able to regain my guard after a failed submission. Now, going forward with one of my students, there was a good situation. It was funny how it happened. I was talking to one of my students about the same situation that I'm telling you about now, a week before one of his tournaments. And then in the tournament, he got to the absolute division, the finals of the absolute in the no-gi. And he's about 200 pounds, lanky guy, right? So he plays a lot of triangles and stuff like that. And he's up against this really big wrestler sort of type guy who is about 300 pounds, big dude, strong dude, right? His freaking ankles were like this big. And so they get out there and he pulls guard, which is part of the plan, and he throws up his triangle, his first attempt. Gets it, locks it in, and the guy just goes, whoom, shucks it off. And my student has a really good triangle, and usually if he gets it on you, it's curtains, it's done, right? And so it was a little unsettling for him that the guy just took his best move and just tossed it to the side. The guy got to mount, got on top of him. My student began to fight, eventually made it back out to close guard. All right, cool. He throws the triangle up again, locks it in even tighter on this time, right? Learned a little bit from the mistake last time. The guy just, boom, chucks it to the side. And again gets to mount. And this was the moment where he said he had the little, that little, you know, little two guy on the shoulder moment, right? He said that when he's laying there, the guy's in mount and the guy had a bit of a belly on him, and he said that, like, you know, they're both super sweaty and this sweaty belly's laying on his stomach, and with the rash guard combined in it, it was almost like having a wet plastic bag like right on your mouth. And he said he felt like he couldn't breathe, right? Because he's so exhausted. And he said that he felt his hand coming up, right? Getting ready to tap the guy on the shoulder. So if you can imagine, he's laying on his back and he's getting ready to tap this guy on the side of his body to be like, I'm done, right? Because he heard that voice coming up to his head and saying, hey, it's done, we're done here. And he said that he like clenched his fist and was like, no, I'm gonna fight through this. Put his frame, got back out of it, got back to full guard. There's 30 seconds left on the clock. And what does he do? He throws up a triangle for the third time. And this time he locks it up and he finishes the guy. And so that was one of the coolest, like, one as a coach. He fought back, and that was a really cool moment. But it was made even cooler when he came up to me afterwards and told me the story of what was going on in his head at the time of the match, right? And again, it just kind of confirmed to me, oh, like, hey, we all go through this, right? So if you were in that situation, Marc, where you feel like you're having that moment where those little voices are coming up through your head telling you to just give up and just quit, you have to train your body to combat that with something positive, or at least tell it to shut up and you keep fighting, right? That kind of thing. So a lot of times, you still have them. You'll always have them, right? You just get better at containing them. Like, I'll go to a tournament now, and there's always like that kind of feeling of, man, did I train enough? That guy looks really tough, or whatever, right? And you have these situations even in life, right? You see a cute girl at the bar or something. You're like, man, I want to go talk to her. I don't know. She probably won't think I'm cute. That kind of stuff, right? It just always pops up. Anytime your body gets a little stressed out, negative self-talk seems to poke up. In order to develop mental toughness, to me, mental toughness is the ability to shut that off and just keep fighting. And so in order to kind of get that voice to be quiet, you have to immediately combat it with something else. So anytime you find yourself sort of with that negative sort of self-talk going on in your head that says, hey, give up, just quit, whatever it is, right? Immediately combat it with something else. Like if it says, you go for a collar choke and you're like, man, I'm not good at collar chokes. Maybe that's going through your head. Immediately fight it with, I'm going to finish this guy with a collar choke. Or if you're in the situations like you said, where the guy's putting pressure on your face and you're wanting to just let go, think to yourself, I'm not going to let go. I'm going to fight this with every ounce of energy I have. Just combat it with that kind of stuff. Again, just being able to constantly do that will train your body to sort of shut off that negative self-talk that goes through your head. So Marc, I hope this tip is helpful to you, brother, in your drive to want to get rid of that sort of that feeling. Again, I know it's frustrating because I've been there, and again, I've seen my students be students there as well. Again, I think this is it, guys. Again, this was a fairly long and good ramble, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time.